Sri Radheshyam. So, few words about yoga and politics. So, if you think about politics, you can say that it is necessary evil in that sense. Every time people gather together and do something, form some kind of society or community, they have to set some rules where that society is community moving, like ethically and economically, socially. What is the direction? Which means that there has to be some rules, and that's why that's where the politics steps in. Someone has to decide the direction. So in that sense, politics is not good or bad, and like how we should see this from the yoga perspective, we can see that now there is this kind of more cartoonish division to the right and left. More that there's the extreme right and there's extreme left. Of course, many people are there on the between, and they are bounced back and forth from these, because that's just natural, because this is not some absolute division. It's based on like some spiritual principles or even the sattvic principles. And you can see that yoga, when we practice yoga, we try to stay in the mode of goodness, and in order to because that's the state where we can approach the actual spiritual platform from that mode of goodness, which means that one has to rise on that mode of goodness, sattva guna. And that happens so that one understands a little bit how the universal works, or how the subtle laws of the universe works, and one try to align one's life on that way, and one's perception to life in that way, that one can stay in that mode of goodness. And many things that we can see that, if it contrasts this to this political field, many things that are keeping you in the mode of goodness, many things are coming from the right side, and then many things are coming from the left side as well. So which means that one cannot really align either one with either one of them. Example, this kind of ahimsa and vegetarianism, it comes more from the is an argument of the left side. And then example, abortion, that is murder, is more argument of the right side. Example. And many of these have many dimensions, which means that there's many different depths of understanding, different angles of understanding. Example, Puranas explain that women should be protected, Bhagavad Gita as well, which means that would be move more towards the left side. Okay, and then it's there's further explanation on that. That example, the female intellect is very much mixed with this emotional intellect, which means that Vedas also explain that women should be protected also from themselves, which is now we start to move more towards the right side. So you can see that things work on the many different levels. Ahimsa should be practiced, but capital punishment is actually act of non-violence towards the murderer, because they get the karmic reaction immediately from that, and they don't further give any more karmic reactions to others who are maintaining them on the jail, because then the others get involved on that, maintaining the criminal. So it's actually act of ahimsa, compassion at the end. So you can see that one cannot really take the sides on this. One should try to stay. If one is taking spiritual practice seriously, one should stick on these eternal dharmic principles, which are keeping one in a mode of goodness. Of course, many people now try to transcend that and jump straight to the spirituality and not address or take part of these topics. Sometimes it's because of the low IQ, one just don't understand that then everything is just love, or everything is just unity or something, without having any actual proper, one is going with the sentiment. Another is just that bhaga and yasa, which means that because if I actually teach the yoga, if I actually teach the sub-religious principles, like I may lose my reputation and I may lose my cash inflow. It's about the money and fame at the end. So that's something that one have to understand that if you do yoga, we should try to stay in the mode of goodness. And yoga is always radical. You always a little bit outside. If you do that, then what is it? Is that then that if you mix the politics and yoga, what does it mean? Does it mean that if there's some political restlessness and there's conversation of the topics, example, which are related to very much on these kind of universal morals and ethics like environmentalism or these pro and anti-abortion conversation, that I cannot say anything because that's considered as a political. No, but I should I should take part of the conversation based on that dharmic position, which means that from the position of mode of goodness, not based on my own emotional opinions or based on my sentiments. So I can still take the part of conversation and say that yes, we support that we support example that abortion is something has to do about it. You cannot just kill the babies in the womb like that. On that extent, what people are doing now, just because it's convenient. Example. So one can still take conversation, part of the conversation, but when it becomes political, when I start to endorse some political party or some candidate, and I'm more using that like a political stance, I'm trying to lure people into my political side, on that side where I'm acting by using the spirituality. That's when it becomes just a political. But we should understand that one should stay in align with the spiritual principles. If I want to progress on the spirit, I have to stay in the mode of goodness, and it's not often it's not socially acceptable necessarily. Very much. And you can see that the other dimensions is that there's the people who are politicizing the yoga. Other way to politicize this yoga is that I'm taking something that is completely out of the context, and I twist the yoga or teachings of yoga to support my social political agenda. Example, there is the Puranas, Bhagavad Purana example explained that the sexual deviation, including the homosexuality, that comes from the mode of ignorance. That's not hate. That's not hate speech. It's just that it's bound the mind to the confusion and ignorance. So it's Rajasic and Tamasic. Okay, and if I'm supporting this kind of rainbow things, and then I bring that on the spirituality. I bring it to the spirituality, and then I dress it somehow spiritual, that it's all about love, although the question is about lust in this case, that we are all one and we should, it's spiritual, this is spiritual now, we all together, and it's all about love. I'm using it for some political or social agenda. I'm using that spiritual, like a spiritual culture, for some matter or purpose. Okay, and you can see that there's one can very easily There's many things that are working, as I explained before, that are working on many different levels. Levels on that, under the same principle. Example is racism. Racism, generally we are all spirit souls. We are all spirit souls, and once you try to see not only the humans but animals, that they are ultimately one in that sense, that everyone is spirit soul, and in that sense no one is better than another one, and that would lean more on the left again. But also the Vedas explained on the material level, there's different level development of consciousness, which means that some individuals have different, some are more primitive than others, and culture is the result of the collective karma. People who have a little bit on the same kind of situation karmically, they born to the same country or same culture, and some cultures are spiritually more developed than others. Would that be then argument from the right side? Would it lean on the right side then? You can see that it's if one want to study the spirituality, one have to do it properly, and that should be the main thing behind everything else. And if you take that stance, like, then you have to forget that you are always politically correct, or you can always gravitate towards that popular opinion, or gravitate towards your own sentiments. And then there is the last thing is that there is this group of people as well that, like, there's on the one side there's who using the spirituality and yoga for the driving their own social political agendas, so they are condemned. And then there's the other side of that, who are abstracting these concepts, in that sense that they don't want to take any side. They don't want to answer to these questions. They say that it's all political. If you talk about like these kind of ethical and moral questions, you try to go around, and the reason is many times money or popularity. You don't want to get labeled. But you can see that that's mode of ignorance. Like in order to me, basically you put yourself on this transcendental level. It's all about love, it's all about unity and stuff like this, which is just abstracting. And then you don't address the things, how one can first get into that mode of goodness, where the spirituality is only possible. When you enter into that mode of goodness, you cannot just jump from the rajas and tamas to the spiritual level without things getting distorted. So you can see that both are problem. Those who are abstracting and say that, every time someone is addressing some ethical and moral issues which may be hot topic in the society, you say that that's political, okay? And others are using this spirituality to drive their political agendas or social agendas. They are both condemned. They are both dropping out from that actual clear understanding. And once you try to avoid these two pitfalls these are the problems for the clear iksha, for the clear perception what comes to the spirituality. One conclusion is this, that this kind of abstraction of the spirituality, that you cannot take part on any social or political conversation, and then that you are using the spirituality for pushing forward your political or social agenda. You can see that they are both stemming from the same source. And what is that same source? That's that you cannot accept. You cannot accept these sattvic universal principles, and that's why I try to go around it. Either I say that there's no comment, it's all laugh or something else, or I push forward my own opinion. You can see that the underlying reason often behind is that I cannot align myself. because it's difficult. Because I have to give up my sometimes I may have to give up my emotional or intellectual stance in order to align with these principles and this kind of sattvic direction for the spirituality. Sometimes people think that we are very advanced, and you know that we can just give us sarva dharmam parichayamam ekam saranam praja. We can just give up all the dharmas and just surrender to spirit. All these sub-religious or sub-spiritual principles, and just jump to the spirit. It's all love or take things cheap way, basically, because we don't want to deal with this stuff. But example, bhakti, vairagya, vidya, niya, bhakti, yoga, bhakti, and this kind of conscious alignment with the spiritual paradigms and like a spiritual perspective, that goes together with the practice. You don't just achieve that just by doing the practice and not taking responsibility. Not taking responsibility of your own consciousness to try to align it. It just don't happen automatically. Yoga is spirituality. Yoga is conscious action. One have to consciously change one's perspective, and there is certain ethical and moral principles which are more like universal, keeping you in the sattva, and that when we study yoga we can understand this stuff, and that's how we can transcend this kind of all these this kind of material, social and political perspectives. But of course, same time when we transcend those, transcending doesn't mean that you suddenly don't have anything to say, but you also conflicting. Externally you appear to conflict with them, and sometimes you conflict inside the same topic. You conflict. It appears that you conflict with yourself as well. Shri Radhishyam.